You go from one room to another and you have to kind of turn it on. 15 minutes early, you wipe the tears and move on.
Yeah.
It's okay at the end of the day to like talk about that with your team because they're all going through it.
I mean, it can be a lot, and sometimes you just need to laugh and cry together as a team and know that today really sucked, but let's come back tomorrow fresh and try to make it better.
Hi, vet friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Vet Reset. I am Dr. Sandra Siegel.
And I'm Dr. Whitney Terrell.
Today we're going to talk about the hardest part about running a veterinary practice. So it's not only just the everyday things that we're dealing with, but also the financial pressures, kind of feeling isolated at times, burnout, emotional burnout, all the things we have to juggle. So we're here to talk about that and tips to help you keep reaching success.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's dive right into this. So let's talk about maybe first what is emotional toll and compassion fatigue, and let's get down to the basics of that.
Yeah, I think that our profession really wears its heart on its sleeve. You don't get into this profession to make money.
Yeah.
You do it because you care for animals.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It is not for the faint of heart. We are, I believe, the only profession that allows for humane euthanasia, which is definitely a huge toll in itself. And oftentimes you have clients that, will say, I'm sure this is the worst part of your job. And while 100% it can suck. And I've definitely had a few that will stay with me until I'm old and gray. It's not always the hardest part of the job. And I know for me, sometimes seeing those pets that you really want to help and you can't, whether it's because of finances or, a number of reasons. They are being abrasive or, whatever it is. Those are the ones that are the most frustrating to me. Obviously, euthanasia can be very, very emotional, but thankfully we do have that capability to end suffering and to give a peaceful passing. Doesn't mean that it doesn't affect us, and I think we oftentimes don't give ourselves enough time to process that grief that we have, because for me in private practice as a general practitioner, obviously it's different for other like specialties and whatnot, but as for me, I often see these pets from puppies and kittens to end of life. And you get that bond with them as well, as, their owners obviously have a connection with them, but you create a bond. And we have a little Dotson that comes in about every 3 weeks for her spa day. Her mom calls it her spa day because we do baths and whatnot. And it's, having those little connections or having some of them come in board and you get to love on them. And so when it does become that time, it's so heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking because of the relationships that you have with your clients and stuff as well.
It's so strong like that. So that there's that human animal bond and then also the connection you have with your clients that are really deep. They run very deep. And it's interesting, like to your point earlier about, I always felt like we were fortunate that we do have that ability to do euthanasia. It's a very responsible thing to be able to do. Like comes with a big responsibility that we all took our oath for and with. So, but it's interesting. I think I personally know like a handful of people that didn't go into like that, were wanting to go into vet medicine, but said, like younger folks that were like, I was thinking about doing that, but I don't think I could handle the euthanasia part, so I'm not going to go into it. And so there's a lot of, I think, pre-vet or people that are interested in it, that like kind of get deterred by that and how heavy that can be. But I think it's real. There is that emotional strain, but, and it affects the entire hospital, everyone in it. But it's something that I think, really is an important piece to have a strong, networking with your team on, so that you support each other through all of the things. 'Cause like you said, you go from one room to another and you have to kind of turn it on, 15 minutes early, you wipe the tears and move on.
Yeah.
And, it's okay at the end of the day to like talk about that with your team, because they're all going through it.
I think that's something that we need to be better about, is talking with our team.
Yeah.
And
not just being like,
and I'm
strong.
Yes.
Hold it in.
And I'm definitely that way. I know we talked about the Enneagram before. As an Enneagram 8, one of the core fears is not being emotional, or not being vulnerable, excuse me. And, showing that side of you is a lot to allow someone else to see. But to be able to have longevity in our career, I think it's something that we have to get better at, and not just for us, but for our support staff as well. And just being like, that was a really hard one. Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah. And I think it's hard to take that time out, because you're running. You have another room and a lot of pressure is going on. So it is hard to take that time, but just taking a few minutes, even if I've had, vet techs that are like, I just need a minute. I gotta, run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Just like, take a minute.
I'm like, literally right now, I'm thinking of a patient, and I'm like trying not to get emotional right now as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because you form these bonds, and it's, they have such great owners, and they would do everything. And we kept this little kitty around for so much longer than we had originally thought. Yeah. And so it was like one of those where you were grateful for that time that you had, but it was so hard to say goodbye. And I can't talk about it now. I'm going to start crying. But yeah, it is hard, and it's hard thinking about, and they stick with you. Oh, yeah. But the ones that stick with me the most are the ones that didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
Those will haunt me to the end of this day. Obviously we're human. Yeah. And sometimes we can't get a good vein, or veins blow, or it's an emergency situation, and
something didn't go as you thought it was.
Something didn't go, and
even if you did everything right.
Yeah.
And it didn't turn out what it was supposed to, because it's life.
It is.
Like, it's not guarantee that everything you do perfectly will go.
And that's honestly, I think, the worst part of the job for me is whenever things like that, because I want to give families that peaceful, beautiful goodbye, to where they have all the time and peace during that process. And when that doesn't happen, the guilt that weighs on me. And in my whole clinic will know, and they'll be like, it's okay. Yeah. You're okay. Like, but that's the hardest part.
You have to give yourself the grace.
You do.
That you are human.
Yeah.
And it's not everything is always perfect. And I think vets in general are probably perfectionists. So it's really hard to handle when it doesn't go exactly like you planned it, as scientifically how it should go. Yeah. And it doesn't work out that way, because it's life.
Yeah.
But I think taking that time, like, again, like I remember the burden that would be on the team after, and like, and I just think that if you get those moments where you can to, group as a team and be like, okay, how are we gonna, like, that really sucked. This was rough. And like, okay, how are we gonna, support each other through the rest of the day to get the day done. And I think just having that support system is so critical.
It's very critical. We have one of the professions that has the highest rates of suicide and depression. And that's scary. And we will never improve if we don't communicate with each other, with the public, about these struggles. And so I do think it's important to try to talk to our staff, to talk with our colleagues, our friends and family. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone in it, I think, than outside of it, because they get it. Yeah. And, family members, unless they're also in the vet world, may not truly understand that emotional toll that it takes sometimes. But
or even reaching out to a counselor, like someone completely neutral, counselor, or other kind of medical help, and just reaching out to someone to talk about it. Let it, bringing it forward and not keeping all the things inside, I think is really critical. Another thing too, and this is sometimes, hard to bring about, but sometimes it'll be the one person in the team who's a little more of like, who can be that like reprieve or whatever. But like, I call them like glimmers. Like when you have like during your day, there's like a little fun thing or like something that happened, and it's just like in the midst of it being pretty heavy, something funny just happens. Yeah. And it's just like,
or you just have some really dark humor. That is my clinic. We are dark humor, and something will happen and we're all sad. And then somebody says something that's completely probably inappropriate. And then we're all just like,
like laughing through the cry.
But you need those moments.
Yes.
You really do.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's that balance of, the balance of your day, as much as possible, trying to balance that weight that happens and the emotions that can go over the day, and not letting them build up. Yeah, I think is really something to be conscious of.
I think another point too is not only the emotional toll we have from just treating our patients, or having to go through just typical work stuff, but also dealing with clients. That's a really big part of the emotional toll and compassion fatigue. And that can go so many different ways when dealing with clients, because you have other emotions that you're having to deal with. Whether it's they're treating their pet for some long-term illness like diabetes, and it's becoming too much for them, and having to talk with them about that emotional journey for them, and having to be there for your client, but also be there for your pet, and have to balance that. That's hard.
That's really hard.
And it's something that you don't really learn except for on the job. And you just have to kind of learn as you go and get better with each new case.
The long-term care piece is tough, especially when I remember having like diabetes. In average, it's not treatable, but it's manageable. Yes. So when you're wanting the client to just give it a try, and they're like, I could never do that. I could never. And it's like, just try. It's not going to be bad. It could be okay. And
thankfully now there's more options besides just injections.
Right. So, but even whatever long-term care issues, just like getting them to agree to do that and give it a try, but like coaching them through that. I also remember like the moment where I was like, I have to be a psychologist too in the room.
Sure.
Where it somehow would be like the therapy room for like couples sometimes. That kind of thing would come out.
Couples therapy is the worst.
Or you get
but it's very entertaining.
And it's about, and he talks about the wife or the wife and the husband, and if they're divorced, like it's just like,
and you're in the middle of the argument, and you're just like standing there awkwardly like, okay, well, we just need somebody to tell us what to do.
Right. I'm going to give you a minute. And come right back.
Or what's bad is you have one that will drop them off for surgery or some type of procedure and be like, yes, do all the things. I consent. We'll do this. And then the other spouse comes to pick up and
has to pay the bill.
You out because they're the ones paying.
Right.
And you're like, your wife said that it was okay.
Right here.
And that's always fun. Yeah. Or having to explain again on the phone to the one that I guess is the primary caretaker after you've already had the spiel.
Right.
Yeah.
That again, digital technologies
tools, yes.
that come into play and can send things to people. So that's another thing on top of, that the balance and the struggle that I think vets have to face of all those challenges that start to be, compounded, that you have to deal with during the day. It's really an incredible balancing act throughout the day of all the things you're going through. If you stop and think about it, it's really crazy.
It's rough.
All the things
I think it really is. And I think one of the hardest scenarios, and again, it's one of those things where you feel guilty about charging for your services that, you put in the work and that you're doing. But whenever you say, hey, we found out Fluffy has a urinary tract infection and we need to do XYZ. And then they're like, well, how much is this going to cost? I don't know if I can do this. My mom's in the hospital. I'm on disability. It's always disability. We always have, I'm on disability and stuff. And then it's like furthering that guilt. And you're just like, I don't know what to tell you besides these are the options that we have available. And, you have to charge for what you're doing or your clinic's going to shut down. Right. But, you feel for them and you want to be there for them. You want to be there for the pet, obviously. But it's a big emotional toll. Yeah. And, I feel like, unfortunately, we get a lot of the backlash from that because they can't necessarily blame it on somebody else. And so since we're taking care of their pets and it's typically small business,
you're
oriented.
The one that it comes down to then. Yeah. And I think that's where also having like those tools in your practice to offer it, at least you have like a list of things to offer. Like if you have wellness plans they could sign up or care credit or other kind of funds that your practice might have, or like not like funds that are able to be tapped into, having your staff be trained on all of those things so they can offer them. At least it's something, that can help in those cases.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's like, it is a lot of guilt on top of everything else to have to carry.
Yeah.
And
what do you do to help cope with all this, emotional toll, or what, to help with compassion fatigue or all the emotions that come with?
Yeah. So the big word is self-care nowadays, and something that I think people are talking about more. So there's a bigger awareness around, thinking about yourself a little bit and what you need to be able to be focusing on the things you have to do. And it's being able to find those things that really help resonate for you to how to get you back on feeling balanced again. And so for me, like, I know we have like, everyone has their hobbies and things like that, but it doesn't have to be this like pressure of like, what's your hobby? We'll just do your hobby. Like some people don't have a hobby. I like to sit and stare at a wall and just chill out for a minute or watch TV, and that's okay. Yes. Like whatever the thing is like identify the thing that like, even if it's like mindless scrolling, I know that's probably not the best dopamine hit ever, but you know, but if it's something that at least gets your...
It definitely can be, because there's a lot of funny videos out there. And I think a big point to that is not just for yourself, but also your staff. So whenever you're working, we used to stay open during lunch and we would have shifts. And honestly, COVID brought along some good changes at our practice. And one of those was, nope, we decided we were going to close for lunch.
That's awesome.
And I think that's a big bonus for our staff, because we get that hour to spend it however you want to, whether it's eating, whether it's staying there, going to your car, taking a nap, watching a show. For me, it's going to the gym. I have to throw around some weights and sweat and listening to crazy music and stuff in a kind of team environment. I always love the team aspect of it, but that is my mental health break. And so everyone has that hour. And I think that's really important for our staff members, is to give them the time, whether it be lunchtime or a designated break. I think that's something that we all need to really consider making sure that we have.
Yeah, and that's important, and everyone use their time to what they need to do. And even if it's as little as like sitting down and eating a meal and like getting something to nourish your body and being able to tackle the rest of it. Yes, being alone, quiet. I like to do, like, my thing is to do workouts, but I like to work out alone, like do my own thing. And it's you feel it when you don't do that thing. You start feeling that, and sort of the signs that are telling you that you need to go and take a break, and learning how to identify those signs is really important too. Kind of stopping and thinking about that, like, okay, I'm now reacting like this. What does this mean? I think I'm kind of getting to that point. I need to like step back a little bit. For compassion fatigue, we have some stats here from the veterinary nurse in 2023 that 50.2% of veterinarians report high burnout levels, and almost 59% experience high secondary traumatic stress, which includes compassion fatigue. These are crazy numbers, really high. And
I believe it.
Yeah. And when we talk about all the things that vets and the staff are doing and thinking about and carrying, I believe those numbers too. And it's, I think, an important piece of managing this with your team is kind of the importance of networking and feeling like, and knowing that you're not alone. Your team cares about you, and the work that you're doing, like, just that everyone is in it together
and valued.
And valued, and like, and as leaders in hospitals, like, bringing that culture into the hospital of having that good culture, good team networking and support for each other.
Yeah. And if you're not at a practice that values and supports you, move on. Yeah. Because that is one of those things of like, or if you are able to work with your partners or associates and get a program into your hospital that, is going to be helpful for that. And looking at what it, like, just identifying what is the culture we want at that hospital. So I think there's a good some good things in there that are going to be supportive for team members. So what would you say is one of the things that has happened when you were in practice that really just shocked you, and where you can say, oh yeah, I believe those stats. I believe the emotional toll that this has had?
I would say probably some of the things we've had to deal with, and these are things you're never prepared for, in vet school or whatever, but like some of the reactions that I've seen from clients or things that we've had to deal with from client complaints or client actions to our team and team members. So I've had to deal with people threatening to shoot our staff. I've had to deal with people absolutely like losing it in the waiting room and screaming at our CSRs or front desk staff, and it was I'm always like, why does this happen here? Like, why is this different than, like, I've never seen this happen at my dentist's office. Like, no one ever lost it there. So it's like, what is the difference there? Like, why do people get lobotomies when they walk into a vet practice?
And I'm guarantee you that you're paying a lot more for your tooth extraction than you are for your pets.
So I've had to deal with some really heavy things, and it's sadly real. And there are things that you just, I was never prepared for, and just have to kind of learn how to deal with on the fly. And, I understand that like having a pet is an emotional decision. Right. And, there's a lot that is attached to that. And so there's some of that understanding, but I think it has to be a middle ground of understing of,
we're people too.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to help. We're trying to make sure that your pet has the, best health that they could possibly have. And that's why we're there. And unfortunately, a lot of times what causes emotions to be heightened is the cost of care.
Yep.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy how emotions from clients and stuff can really, like you said, I mean, threatening physical violence. I've had someone call me a bitch over $22. I've also, 22. And I've had, I will never forget this one person that, this was when I was doing relief work, and she had wanted a refill on 2 medications. Well, these 2 medications that I noticed the pet was on could interact with each other. And I was like, this, isn't really the safest thing for us to be doing. I'm just going to refill this one medication and let's see how we just do on this.
Right.
And no, we did not want to do that. And I was like, it's for the best, the client, like I would really kind of be, not necessarily having malpractice if I did it, but it's not what's advised. And ended with her screaming pretty loudly how she did not like me. She did not want to see me, all because I was trying to do what was best for the patient and not give 2 medications that would have caused side effects together.
Right.
So yeah. And then, when there's other clients and stuff out front, that's embarrassing, and they are only hearing the one side.
Right. You don't wonder what is going on back there.
Yes. And I mean, it's wild. I've had, it's always typically, aside from the medication issue, it's usually based on finances. And I get it. It's emotional. It's a burden having to, pay for things to have a pet. But unfortunately, that's part of it. You got to, feed them. You got to have, routine health care. And then you got to pay for any, problems that might arise.
Right.
But, I mean, you get told that you're ripping off people and, taking advantage of them. And it's a lot to deal with emotionally when people keep telling you you're the bad guy.
Right. And I think there's a piece of that where like, you know the reality of it, and you're like, oh, they're dealing with stuff that is making them like that. And there's all the logic that goes behind it. Like I'm sure they're dealing with some things that are outside of this. It's making them reactive, and it's all the like reasons why. But it doesn't stop the fact that it still affects you. It affects your entire team. And you have to recover from that and keep going with a smile. Yeah. And so it's a lot, I think, for having those moments and kind of regrouping and being like, okay, this is what happened, and let's kind of shake this off, or however we're gonna like get through that. It's you have to kind of take those moments and stop and be like, or even if it's like, that was insane. Like, let's just all, go from here. And then that was not okay.
I know that we have in our office this little box, and it has these little like whiskey and vodka shooters, and it says break open in case of an emergency. We've broken it open a couple of times, and after hours, of course, because of the days that you have. I mean, it can be a lot, and sometimes you just need to laugh and cry together as a team and know that today really sucked, but let's come back tomorrow fresh and try to make it better.
Let's go into now more of the what can we do and more like actionable things that we can do as individuals, as colleagues, as team members, to balance out the, what happens at work and our personal lives. And, we bring our whole selves to work. It includes all of the personal life and the work life. So, it's a lot to juggle. So what are some of the things that we can do? Like, what do you have some tips that you?
I mean, I know we already kind of talked a little bit about self-care, and I obviously like the gym. But I think one of the biggest things that I feel like vets as a whole are kind of bad at, we're getting better setting boundaries.
It's a big one.
It is a big one. And,
It's a really good one too.
It is. It is something that we need to continue to do, because that is something that can make your work-life balance better, and then just your emotions better, because when you leave work, leave it there and come back. I'm not necessarily the best at that.
I think it's a work in progress always. For
always. But it's whenever you get the Facebook messages from people you haven't seen in 10 years. Oh, hey, can I send you this picture of my dog? And I've just kind of either don't open it.
Yeah.
I usually can't just not respond.
Right.
That's just me. But I typically will say, hey, like, probably needs to be looked at in the clinic.
Yeah.
Please give us a call on Monday.
Right.
And I might not even reply until the work. That's one thing I usually try not to even reply until I'm at work or during the work week, because the weekend is my time with my family to do whatever we choose to do. But I try to leave work stuff as much as possible at work.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing.
I think what helps with that too is, again, back to the team culture and like using the network of your team to help each other with that, and holding each other like to that standard and accountable, so that especially leaders of the hospital, like leading by example, and allowing people to be like I'm not going to contact you at your day off. You know, someone else can do it.
Yes.
Or answer that question or whatever, and doing that for each other and looking out for each other in that way.
Yeah.
And not making the like, oh, she's the vet or he's the vet. It's okay. Like we need to ask them that question. Like there are other, like just having that understanding in the practice about with other team members that this is how our culture is going to be. We look out for each other, and your time off is your time off. Yes.
I love that. And like you said, for every staff member, not just the receptionist, not just the vet, not just like everyone.
Yes.
It's their day off. Leave them alone.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I also think that is how, as the clinic, we can learn to delegate tasks a little bit better too, because I know we talked about staying late for charts, and, there's good options out there now for AI Scribe to help with that. But also, are you behind in your charts because you're doing tasks that you maybe should be having your technicians do? Right. Are you getting in there? Are you prepping for surgeries and stuff whenever you could be catching up on some of your work, and then hop in and start doing a procedure?
And probably your techs are wanting to learn how to do things and do more.
Absolutely. So they want to be utilized. Yeah.
So it's taking that time to train them, and I think delegation, but also cross training, things like doing inventory should not be left for one person.
Yeah, that's definitely a soft spot for me there.
But, cross training people, making sure that there's multiple people able to do something. So if that person's out, it's not like everybody's like frozen.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, and freaking out about it. We talked about self-care, which is really important. I think it's talked about a lot, and people are like, oh yeah, it's me time, but it's real.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Do your me time. And
figure out
more
what makes you happy.
unapologetic me time. Like this is something I want to do.
Yes.
I need to do my workout. I need to do whatever it is that helps you. And then I think around with boundaries is time management, like getting that good time management skill, and being able to prioritize tasks, whether it's you have a list of things or something that helps you, like a resource that helps you with that time management piece. Having, again, team members like look out for each other for time management. I think that's important. It shouldn't just fall on one person in the hospital.
Absolutely. And then I think learning to just say no sometimes.
Yeah.
I think
that's a hard one.
It's hard. And I think as a profession as a whole, we care and we want to get your pet in, we want to do this. But if you are overloading the schedule, by saying yes to everything coming in, it's not good for anybody. It's not good for your patients, because you're going to be forgetful. You're going to be rushed, and that's when mistakes happen.
Right.
And so, learning where your threshold is and when to say no, and that it's okay. And not everybody is going to like it, but you have to be able to accept that, give, good options and recommendations, and, move on.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be no period. It can be no and.
Yes, absolutely.
Here are other things that
you can do. Here are some other options for you.
Right. I think also there are lots of networks out there that are really important. I think probably and hopefully every vet knows about Not One More Vet organization. Non-V's are really important, has really important resources on their website, and very helpful in their resources that you can bring back into your hospital too, to help with kind of dealing with and combating these pressures that we go through.
Yeah, I think if you are hitting that burnout, that compassion fatigue, having or struggling with a really hard emotional toll of the profession, there are options and there are networks, like you said, out there to help you individually and then to help your practice. The NOMV, the Not One More Vet, is very good mentorship, having someone that you can talk to. I know in Alabama we have the Power of 10, which is a leadership academy. We also have Mentor Vet, which we've just started in the past year to get younger vets kind of partnered with a vet that has more years of experience. So when those hard times do come around, and they're coming, you might not have experienced them yet, but they're on their way. You have someone to reach out to that gets it.
Talk to them. Ask about even just advice or something. I think that network piece is so important, that to not feel like you're ever alone or isolated, because it's kind of a small world in the vet world. So
very.
I feel like we're kind of here for each other.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of different talks that you can go to with continuing education that talks about ways to help improve your mental health and your practices, overall productivity and work-life balance and whatnot. So those are great tools to see. But yeah, just like you said, the vet community as a whole is pretty small. I feel like it's not even 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
It's like maybe 2.
Yeah.
You're going to know somebody who knows somebody.
Yep.
And
talk to each other.
Yeah. One of the best things about the social media aspect of this Vetstagram community is we all have these shared experiences, and we've all kind of gone through similar things. We've all received negative reviews. We've all had trolls come after us. And so being able to talk to your peers that are going through similar things is so helpful, and it helps you know that you're not alone.
Yep. I think that's so key. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vet Reset. We know this was a really heavy topic, but we did feel like it was an important one to talk about. We hope that you found value in our conversation today and gained some useful insight on ways to manage stress, compassion fatigue, and burnout, because you deserve to enjoy your work as much as you love caring for your patients.
If what we talked about today resonated with you, please consider subscribing and following us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And let's keep this conversation going. Drop us a comment and let us know how you navigate the challenges of vet life.
Don't forget to share this episode with other veterinary friends who are eager to learn and grow. And remember, it's okay to take a step back and hit the reset button and reclaim your veterinary career.